Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking Emma Lee of the class of 2018 for stepping in and playing the cello preludes tonight. It's from Bach's Suite Number 2. Thank you, Emma, for that beautiful introduction to tonight's ceremony. And by way of providing a little context for this evening for our seniors, I'd like to explain that a baccalaureate gathering is a celebration that honors a graduating class. The program is typically held within a few days of the commencement ceremony, and the speakers tend to be community leaders, and, as is true for Potomac, they may be elected by the members of the class. Speeches are often interwoven with musical performances and readings. According to Wikipedia, and don't tell Mrs. Mahoney that I'm using Wikipedia as my source, but according to Wikipedia, baccalaureate addresses in the 19th century were delivered in Latin and could range in length from about half an hour to as long as 4 or 5 hours. We'll now take a brief pause so you can take out your cell phones and adjust your evening plans accordingly. Before turning the podium over to Thomas DeSantis in a little bit, I'd like to leave you, members of the class of 2015, with one thought. All of you remember 9th grade and the story of Ulysses, who for 10 years fought on the plains of Troy and then struggled for 10 more years as he returned to his island home of Ithaca. Along the way, he encountered fantastic adventures and courageously overcame unimaginable difficulties. The following is an excerpt from the Greek poet Constantine Cavafy's poem, Ithaca. When you set out for Ithaca, ask that your way be long, full of adventure, full of instruction. Ask that your way be long, at many a summer dawn to enter ports seen for the first time, to gather stores of knowledge from the learned. Your arrival there is what you are destined for, but do not in the least hurry the journey. Better that it last for years, so that when you reach the island, you are old, rich with all you have gained along the way. So, as you embark upon the journey that lies before you, may you do so with an open ear, an open heart, an open mind, and with the curiosity from which all knowledge springs. May you find your own Ithaca only after you have been enriched by all you have encountered along the way. Thank you, and congratulations, class of 2015.
Don't worry, it's triple spaced. Mr. Furkey was kind enough to tell us all about Baccalaureate and steal my entire introduction in the process. So I'll just go right ahead. So basically, like when I was researching Baccalaureate, I was trying to figure out what I should talk about today. And as Mr. Furkey said, it's basically just a mildly outdated religious ceremony where people talk about whatever they want to. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So my interpretation of Baccalaureate, because it's the only one that makes sense, is as a prequel to commencement. So commencement, as the name suggests, is a celebration of a new beginning. We're all headed off to new places, college, and we're all very excited about that. But there's also a time to look back and celebrate what we've accomplished in high school. And for me, that's what Baccalaureate is. So we've already had our athletic assembly, we've already had our awards assembly, and our closing assembly. So I'm sort of wondering, what's left to celebrate here? Obviously, we've seen each other succeed in the classroom, on the sports field, and in countless other areas. But there has to be something more to show for our 4 years here. All those awards and plaques and banners are great to be able to point to and say, I did that, but what are they worth at the end of the day? And honestly, I'm not so sure. So what exactly is it that we walk out of here with? And I was thinking that maybe that's just it. We walk out of here. The class that's going to walk out to the swing tree tomorrow is not the same class that walked in 4 years ago. My hope for you and for me is that we've all changed each other, and I hope that those are changes we'd be proud of. So the first thing I want to say to all of you is thank you, first of all. So thank you for all the high fives I forced you to give me across the years. Thank you for letting me distract you in the library and delay you on the way to class, because that's just what I do. Thank you for all the advice, whether I asked for it or not. And thank you for making the last 4 years really worth remembering. And thank you for making me who I am today. And of course, that goes for all of our teachers as well, wherever they are. All the teachers who spend extra time after class to help us with whatever we're struggling with, or just to get to know us better. I mean, after all, where would we be today without Keely's Dragon Ball Z lessons or Mr. Morgan's endless puns? We'd probably be fine, actually, but 4 years would have been a lot less interesting. So, and so I guess the next thing is people usually give advice at these sorts of things. So I guess I'll give you some of my own, and by my own I mean to Leonard Skinner and Mad Men quotes, because anybody who knows me well enough knows I don't actually give good advice. So the first quote I'd like to share is from Mr. Don Draper. He wisely says that people tell you who they are, but we ignore it because we want them to be who we want them to be. So, granted, maybe not the best guy out there, but he got this part right. People will always tell you who they are. They broadcast it with every action, every word, and every breath. We're surrounded by people begging for the world to see them as they are, but we rarely recognize it. We want everybody to live in our world instead of trying to figure out how we can live in others. So here's my first piece of advice to you. Listen. Listen to the people around you. They'll tell you who they are. Like Tricia said last week during her presentation, don't live on the world, live in it. Let people be who they are and learn to live in worlds that aren't your own. So my second piece of advice is to never forget who you are. As the great philosophers of Leonard Skinner said, be a simple kind of man. Be something you love and understand. Well, these words surely pale in comparison to those of the now famous philosopher Matt Speedy. They've always held important meaning for me. Being simple is a difficult task. There's so much that we want and so much to be wanted that sometimes we forget what life is all about. When you strip away all the excess, people all want the same things. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, and we want to feel fulfilled. Being simple to me means recognizing this and acknowledging that almost everything else is just extra. I will say, one of these seems harder than the others. At least I know I haven't quite figured out what being fulfilled means to me. Whether through personal success, serving others, or self-discovery, real fulfillment is difficult to grasp. Whatever it is for you, whenever you find it, my hope is that you devote yourself entirely to it. Being honest with yourself about who you are and what you really want is the only way to be simple and the only way to love yourself. So, now that you've sat through 5 minutes of life advice from a high school senior, please enjoy the rest of our far too brief time together and know that I will always be proud to say I was a member of this class.
That's going to go. Good evening to you all. Apologize that my voice is a little bit on the fritz, but hopefully it comes across as robust outside as I'm feeling inside. When I was first asked to participate tonight, I was in a little bit of a quandary about what to read. When I was here a couple of years ago for the class of 2012, I shared with them a text that has been incredibly important to me in really since I was your age. And I thought, well, it seems redundant to share it again, but I couldn't think of anything that was more meaningful to me as far as a poem or a particular reading goes. And so I thought, well, then you two will be recipients of the wisdom. When I first read Max Ehrmann's words in high school, they resonated with me, and they've been something of a touchstone ever since. Wherever I have lived, this poem has hung on the wall by the door. And when I'm feeling overwhelmed or unsettled, I read it as a way to recalibrate and refresh. The poem's name is Desiderata, Latin for desired things. It's fitting since having been written in 1927, it was during an era of tremendous change that left many Americans feeling uneasy about the nation's changing values. And so I share it with you tonight. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexatious to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as keep your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere, life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be there. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be or her, and whatever your labors and aspirations. In the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul. With all its sham and drudgery and broken dreams, It is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. I'm grateful to have had this part in the evening with you, and I wish you all the very, very best. Congratulations.
To the graduating class of 2015, I am honored and humbled to offer you all a reading for illumination. The existentialist Albert Camus was a Nobel Prize-winning author and philosopher. He strongly believed in individual freedom. In the myth of Sisyphus, Camus clarifies his existential philosophy by examining the ancient Greek myth. The gods had condemned Sisyphus to ceaselessly rolling a rock to the top of a mountain, whence the stone would fall back on its own weight. They had thought for some reason that there is no more dreadful punishment than futile and hopeless labor. If one believes Homer, Sisyphus was the wisest and most prudent of mortals. Opinions differ as to the reasons why he became the futile labor of the underworld. To the gods, his contempt of their disregard for humankind, his hatred of death, and his passion for life warned him that unspeakable penalty in which the whole being is exerted towards accomplishing nothing. This is the price that must be paid for the passions of this earth. Nothing is told us about Sisyphus in the underworld. Myths are made for the imagination to breathe life into them. As for this myth, one sees merely the whole effort of our body straining to raise the huge stone, to roll it, and push it up a slope 100 times over. One sees the face screwed up, the cheek tight against the stone, the shoulder bracing the clay-covered mass, the foot wedging it, the fresh start with arms outstretched, the wholly human security of the two earth-clotted hands. At the very end of his long effort, measured by skyless space and time without distance, the purpose is achieved. Then Sisyphus watches the stone rush down in a few moments toward the lower world, whence he will have to push it up again towards the summit. He goes back down to the plain. It is during that return, that pause, that Sisyphus interests me. A face that toils so close to stones is already stone itself. I see that man going back down with a heavy yet measured step towards the torment of which he will never know the end. That hour, like a breathing space, which returns as surely as his suffering, that is the hour of consciousness. At each of these moments when he leaves the heights and gradually sinks towards the layers of the gods, he is superior to his fate. He is stronger than his rock. If this myth is tragic, that is because its hero is conscious. Where would his torture be, indeed, if at every step the hope of succeeding upheld him? The workman of today works every day in his life at the same task, and his face is no less absurd. But it is tragic only at the rare moments when it becomes conscious. Sisyphus, proletarian of the gods, powerless and rebellious, knows the whole extent of his wretched condition. It is what he thinks of during his descent. The lucidity that was to constitute his torture, at the same time, crowns his victory. There is no fate that cannot be surmounted. If the descent is thus sometimes performed in sorrow, it can also take place in joy. This word is not too much. Again, I fancy Sisyphus returning towards his rock, and the sorrow was in the beginning. when the images of earth cling too tightly to memory, when the call of happiness becomes too insistent, it happens that melancholy arises in man's heart. This is the rock's victory. This is the rock itself. The boundless grief seems too heavy to bear, but crushing truths perish from being acknowledged. Thus, looking at our good friend, Oedipus at the outset obeys fate without knowing it. But from the moment he knows, his tragedy begins. Yet at that same moment, blind and desperate, he realized that the only bond linking him to the world is the cool hands of his daughters. Then, a tremendous remark rings out. Despite so many ordeals, the nobility of my soul makes me conclude that all is well. Sophocles' Oedipus thus gives the recipe for the absurd victory. I conclude that all is well, says Oedipus, and that remark is sacred. It echoes in the wild and limited universe of man. It teaches that all is not, has not been exhausted. It drives out of this world any God who had come into it with dissatisfaction and a preference for futile suffering. It makes a fate a human matter, which must be settled among men. All Sisyphus' silent joy is contained therein. His fate belongs to him. His rock is just a thing. All at that subtle moment when man glances backward over his life, Sisyphus returning to his rock, in that slight pivoting, he contemplates that series of unrelated actions which becomes his fate, created by him, combined under his memory's eye, and soon sealed by his death. Thus, convinced of the wholly human origin of all that is human, a blind man eager to see who knows that the night has no end, he is still on the go. The rock is still rolling. I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain. One always finds one's burden again. But Sisyphus teaches the higher fidelity that negates the gods and raises rocks. He too concludes that all is well. This universe, henceforth without a master, seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain, in itself forms a meaningful world. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. Although, yes, that struggle is real. Ultimately, one must imagine Sisyphus happy and well. Go well.
Good evening. I start by thanking Thomas, Stephanie, and Dante for the beautiful words, and I think the themes of owning your own fate and the value of struggle are things that will serve you guys valuably as you move forward from Potomac. To all the performers providing elegant music, and thank you to the rest of the Potomac community, my beloved faculty, the buildings and grounds crews that make every day possible, the support of parents, and all of our students, specifically you, the class of 2015. Thomas asked us to consider being a simple man, and I hope I can honor his request by sharing some insight into the simple basics of who I am and why I'm here. I'm a little nervous. This is a formal setting. I'm more comfortable by the crossroads or in sweatpants. But in times like this, I fall back on the words of Mrs. Jenkins, speaking to my second grade self about public speaking. Ian, you are always talking when you're not supposed to. Now, you are supposed to, and everyone has to listen. So, here we go. I found seeking perspective to be a very useful exercise. The technological world that we live in is a wonderful one, but all the likes and follows, emails and retweets, inboxes and status updates can have even the most grounded person feeling stressed and overburdened. When caught in such a riptide of deadlines, appointments, and the never-ending thing-to-do list, we often lose sight of the most important things in our lives. Your generation in particular is unique in that you are truly the first generation capable of being always online. With this in mind, I believe it's critically important to find the tools to separate yourself from that readily selectable chaos and create moments to calmly and carefully consider the world around you and your place in it. I can't tell you how you might exactly go about that. Some will pray, some will meditate, some write, some sing, and some dance. Me, I take time to feel small. I saw an infographic recently that helped me in my bizarre quest for smallness, authored by Ali Benazir. It's titled, "What are the odds that you exist as you today?" It's one of those top-down, flowcharty infographics, and in this case it presents a thought experiment, examining various statistical odds most pertinent to you being born as the person you are, from the proposed odds of your father meeting, to the odds of one particular sperm fertilizing one particular egg, to the odds of this happening over and over and over again in an unbroken lineage for the entirety of human existence. Ultimately, when the math was finished, and allowed Thomas, Mrs. Clarkson, and the rest of Harry Potter / advanced math check it for accuracy, the author concluded that the chance of you existing biologically as you today is roughly 1 in 10 to the 2,685,000. Success. I feel really, really small. Not quite Sant'Angelo, but close. So, my standing here this evening with the opportunity to address you is statistically improbable, to say the very least. And to add to that smallness, I'm a huge science nerd. Bert knows this. All the matter that I'm composed of, that we're all composed of, is an amalgamation of complex organic molecules composed in part from rare heavy elements that can only be forged in the final dying breaths of exploding stars. Small. So why feel small? What's the value in it? Well, for me, when I carve out some time and space, within time and space, to consider these things, I feel powerful. Because be it by infinitesimally small chance, or perhaps by an unseen divine hand, my life, your life, and every life is a miracle. Speaking then as a said representative of miracles, because I have the stage, and surrounded by all of you other miracles, I don't mind feeling small, because I believe firmly that together we can do big things. Unfortunately, together requires authentic relationships. And authentic relationships are challenging, scary, demanding, and sometimes dangerous. You can and you will get hurt. But you'll never really know someone. You won't fully understand yourself. And you can't possibly realize your true potential until you're willing to be exposed and experience all of the emotion that comes with it. Watching a huddle highlight reel of Naeem, liking an Instagram photo, updating a Snapchat story, replying to a group text, they don't cut it. You must peel back the layers. Make yourself vulnerable. Take down the walls and show others who you really are, what you believe in, what hurts, what makes you proud, and what makes you scared. Make vulnerability your greatest strength by using it as a platform to share with one another on the most profound of emotional levels. It's my pleasure then to use my opportunity tonight to be vulnerable and to share and connect with you. You have to start with Mom. Debs? There's Debs. That's my mom, everyone. Turns out I wasn't hatched from an egg or grown in a tube. I was an accident, but that's another story. This particular story starts in 1996. You guys, seniors, were taking your first breaths, picking up your heads, rolling over, or not even here yet. I was going to a new school and enamored with a new sport. Came home, and I confidently told my mother, I'm going to play college lacrosse. My evidence was compelling. I had never played the sport before. Landon had a regional powerhouse. I was coming off a spiral fracture of my tibia, and I was a strong 5'4", 140 pounds. Destined for greatness. Well, Debs did as Debs does. She supported me, like she always has, and she told me with belief and conviction, you can do it. You can do anything you put your mind to. Fast forward 20 years later. Played high school lacrosse, played college lacrosse, professional lacrosse, international lacrosse. Those are just things. But at every level, I played on the same team, wearing the same jersey as my younger brother. That experience, perhaps, is the most treasured of my life, and was made possible by my mother's stalwart belief and support in what I wanted to pursue. Now, my mom wasn't always just a dream, big dream supporter. She's tough. She can tap into a cold-hearted, sinister, and maybe even hateful competitive side. She detests losing, and she will absolutely tell you why you lost. So all of you here seniors that have at sometimes incurred the righteous wrath of Coach Healy screaming, accountability, blame parenting. So let's rewind to fall of '92. It's a State Cup soccer semifinal game in the late minutes. I'm playing left defensive back, and I misplay a ball badly in our own end. That results in a tap-in for the other team. We fail to equalize, lose the game, out of State Cup. That's the best soccer team I ever had. So we did what you do when you lose a game as 11-year-olds. Exactly what you do when you win the game as 11-year-olds. You eat orange slices and drink Capri Suns on the sideline. So there I am. Orange slice in my mouth, and a mangled Capri Sun. I cannot open those things. I slide right through them, and there's stuff everywhere. But I'm in this crowd of parents telling us all how hard we tried and how nice a game it was. So Debs comes over, taps me on the shoulder, looks me in the eye. You know you blew the game for the whole team. So I didn't get the everyone's a winner, or you tried really hard moment. I got the real. My actions cost my team a state championship berth. Debs let me sit there for a few moments. 11. I'm 11 years old. And digest the magnitude of my failure. Then she said, reassuringly, it's okay to fail as long as you learn from it. I know you'll learn from this one. We'll win the next one. And I've won a lot of games since then. And I've made a lot of mistakes. But as long as you pick yourself back up, it's worth it. Now my mom got her toughness from her mom, Gloria. Affectionately known as Mama. She is basically invincible. So she broke her neck playing tennis in her 60s. It was in an indoor court, and there's not enough padding going to a wall. And being the tryhard that she is, she dove for a shot, and because there wasn't padding, ended up breaking her spine. It required surgery and a halo brace to avoid possible paralyzation. Within 2 years, completely recovered and back on the courts. 3 years ago, she broke her hip and had an infection following surgery that almost killed her. She would tell you that the love and support from her husband, Bill, is what carried her through as she recovered from yet another challenging near-death experience. Last year, she was presented with a unique opportunity. Return the favor. Bill ended up in a coma after a severe cardiac event. The doctors were ready to have a conversation about when life support should be shut off. That's when Bill decided it was time to get up. He would tell you that the love and support from Mama is what carried him through. Mama turns 90 this summer, a remarkable achievement from a remarkable woman. and both her and Bill epitomized to me a mentality of keep living until you're done. They have taken life, and they have gotten everything from it, and they're not ready to go just yet. I am truly thankful for their persistence and resilience. Now, as a philosopher, I struggle with one thing, really. I struggle with the possibility that my brother might be concrete proof of absolute morality, because he lives a perfect, ethical, and principled life. A long time ago, we were on our way home in my mother's brown Mitsubishi van after a trip to Roy Rogers following a soccer game. Brendan was really upset. We asked him what's wrong. He goes, I didn't stop them. I mean, my brain was, you won the game 4-1, so it wasn't a game. What is wrong with you? Stop who? And he said, my friends. They were making fun of that kid, and I didn't stop them. That kid was another child of Roy Rogers, sitting across the restaurant, well beyond the hearing range of any comments coming from Brendan's table. But that kid clearly suffered from some manner of developmental disorder. That kid was probably someone who could not have defended himself from a joke or a bully. Bear in mind, that kid never heard anything. All the jokes were just between friends, and Brendan was devastated. Brendan was 8. An 8-year-old felt and intuitively understood the importance and moral significance of respecting and protecting others, particularly those less fortunate or less capable, even when they're unaware they've been wrong. And he has lived his life like that ever since. Fast forward a few years, my brother attended a summer lacrosse camp with his future coach at Landon, Rob Bordley, coaching the summer team. He was looking to impress. He was going to be in high school next year. On the first afternoon of a 5-day event, Brendan took a vicious check to his right arm, suffering a fully displaced fracture of his ulna. The trainers cleared him to play because, based upon physical examination and how little pain he showed, they figured it couldn't possibly be a fracture. 5 days later, playing mostly with his offhand, since his right arm was broken, he was collecting the MVP award for his age group. The day after that, he was in a full-arm cast. Brendan combines his character, his morality, with a drive to succeed and willpower that I've only seen in one other person. Bruce Wayne, who's not real. He is the best person I know, and someone I look up to every day as an older brother. Rick's my stepdad. He came into my life when I was really volatile. I was angry. I had an alcoholic father. I was angry that my parents were divorced. I was the last teenage boy that you would want to invite to your home as a stepson. But my mother and Rick had fallen in love and decided to take on the challenge. In 1997, the Healy Turner Plan was born. 4 boys, all within a total age range of 2.5 years. Rick and Debs, and Ivanhoe the Labrador, also a boy. My stepbrothers actually split time between Rick's house and their mother's, leaving Brendan and I as the only full-time kids in the house. The possibility and ways this could have gone sideways are basically unimaginable. I wasn't looking for a father figure. I wasn't looking for a friend. I was not looking for anything. I was angry and comfortable in my anger. And Rick didn't try to do anything special. Rick didn't pretend to be anyone he wasn't. Rick was there. I'd come home from practice. There he was. I'd get up for breakfast in the morning, and he was there. I'd come in the house, knuckles bare, almost to the bone, from punching trees in fits of rage, with blood pouring from my hands. And he was there. He never forced conversation. He never tried to be anyone but himself. No matter what, no matter when, I know he'll be there. And 18 years later, he's there. The final anecdote from my life before Potomac concerns the most complicated relationship in my life, that with my father. Alan is not a bad man. But decades ago, he couldn't shake his demons, and he ruined his family and his life with alcohol. As a teenager, I had every reason to be angry at him. He failed himself, he failed our family, he failed me. But sometime, down at the bottom, alone and broken, he picked himself up. He put the bottle behind him, and he began to try to put the pieces back together. Hopefully, none of us will ever find ourselves in such a position. But I know when I say, I couldn't have taken those steps forward, having sunk that low. Next spring, he will reach 20 years of sobriety. It was then when he was trying to do right and looking to atone that I failed him. And I learned the difference between what is justifiable and what is right. As he rehabilitated himself, he sought to re-engage in the lives of his sons. He would come to our games, watch us play, and stand desperately around afterwards in the hopes that I would just acknowledge him. I didn't. For the first 5 years of his sobriety, I took advantage of my newfound position of power. He hurt me. I was going to hurt him back. It was simple, justifiable. Eventually, my thirst for revenge diminished. Perhaps I had my fill, or perhaps I grew up. Regardless, I began to speak to my father again. During my brother's final year at Maryland, I had already graduated, and Al and I would go to Brendan's games together and talk for the first time in our lives, authentically, as a father and a son. It was tremendous. I learned about his pain. I learned about his life. I learned about his weakness. I learned about the power of forgiveness and the importance of giving someone a second chance when they deserve it and when they ask for it with humility. Unfortunately, Alan's health started to turn. Decades of drinking exacted a heavy toll. It has been a slow and painful decline since then. His physical and mental capabilities continue to degrade. He is agoraphobic, and his once renewed optimism has faded into an all too often spiteful cynicism. I see him every few weeks. It hurts, and it's not going to get better. And I took 5 years. Took 5 years of a healthy relationship because I wanted it to hurt. Because I enjoyed my position of power and abused my position of strength. It was justifiable. I was a kid. But I wasn't right. I can never get those years back. The potential growth in the relationship with my father, the steps he could have made toward truly forgiving himself, are gone. I hope to never abuse a position of power again, and learned in a very hard way that the best thing you can do with power is empower those around you. These stories provide a window into what has been a charmed life, a privileged and fulfilling life filled with wonderful people that I'm frankly not sure I truly deserve. But it is mine nonetheless, and I am sure that I am going to make good on these relationships. I owe all of these people, my father included, debts I can never repay. And so instead, I strive to pay it forward. 10 years ago, I first started working at Potomac as an assistant lacrosse coach, that same year that I was reconnecting with my father. The boss hog dog man himself, Rob Lee, he saw something in me. And before I knew it, he had convinced me to become the athletic intern instead of pursuing a graduate degree in philosophy, because that made a lot of sense. 6 years ago, Robert Von Glon, and he'll never admit to this, made sure I got an interview with the upper school history department. For the last 5 years, I have had the privilege of working with you kids. In the classroom, the weight room, the fields, and the halls. It has been the best 5 years of my life. Class of 2015, you are truly remarkable. My connections with you are greater in volume and depth than any other class of Potomac. I have watched you achieve incredible things across the entire spectrum of what Potomac offers. And because it would be impossible for me to go through individual anecdotes, because I know so many of you and love so many of you, I will instead walk you through a typical day in the life of Ian Healy at Potomac. Roll out of bed with clothes next to the bed. I keep my hair short so I don't have to shower in the morning. I have an alarm clock where I have to solve math problems to make it snooze because otherwise I'll sleep through it. I get to school around 7:30 wearing dress pants, sweatpants. Never missing those windows and chances to exchange sarcastic barbs or high fives with you seniors on the way in from the parking lot. I consider very briefly, I don't really consider it at all, going to the faculty room, but decide that there's probably more entertainment to be had in the crossroads, and I head there. After a few minutes of inside jokes and chirps, drinking my fill of the enthusiasm and energy that all of you exude, Mr. Burt tells us the bells aren't working, and I have to run to get to my A or B Black freshman class because I'm late. After finishing with the freshmen, the fun begins. Senior lectures. U.S. foreign policy and the modern Middle East were filled with brilliant thinkers, hard workers, and above all, playful students that love their time with each other and love their time at Potomac. You wowed me with your engagement, your discipline, and your creativity. However, as with all classes at Potomac, they were perhaps at their most valuable when we went off script, to have a collective discussion about whatever was on your minds. E-block, time for lunch. Intent on arriving early and beating the rush, I sprint down the hall, but inevitably get derailed by something amazing happening in one of the art studios. Really, it is incredible what you guys accomplish. Eventually, I break myself loose, and now I am stuck in the E-block lunch line, and it's full of F-blockers and Bon Juan. That has to stop. Okay, F-block goes to F-block. It's ridiculous. But stuck in line, I verbally spar with a dozen of you while getting food. I hit up some serious knucks with squad, and then one or several of you like to tell me what a soft Libby I am. On the way out, I tell Duffy what a wonderful body type he has. I pounded with Levi, I high-five Rendell, I eat 4 cookies too many, and I head to an F-block discussion panel. Now I find myself in a room overflowing with students, leading impassioned discussions about feminism, social justice, religion and atheism, gender identity, media's impact on our self-image, or any of the other topics you have brought to us. I cannot remember a single one of these conversations that finished before we ran out of time, or a single one of those conversations where I didn't learn more than I gave. After one more freshman block, school's out. It's time for practice. Armed with my camo hat and a firm belief that accountability is not just a word, the next 2 hours are spent working hard to defeating our friends from Oakton and securing another director's cup. After practice, it's alumni season in the weight room. Reconnect with old friends while increasing raw force output and developing lean body mass. You had me at raw force output. 7:30 rolls around. And I retreat to the coach's office where Duffy eats his 4th lunch. And the handful of you that always still remain settle in to talk, watch film, or just relax. At 8 or so, I leave campus. I tell Alex Thomas to go home on my way out. And then I'm off to LTO or Chipotle for some delicious hot green sauce. Then home, read, play video games, and go to bed before doing it all over again. Seniors, thank you. Tomorrow marks a huge transition for you. And as with any transition, you get to choose what you take with you and what you leave behind. I hope you will carry forward the heart of Potomac, the relationships that have helped shape you into who you are today. I hope you will carry forward a willingness to be vulnerable, a sense of debt that can never be paid, and a drive to pay it forward. I'll close with a quote, because, as is often the case, someone has already said it better than I ever could have. Last summer, when accepting the Jimmy V. Perseverance Award for his courageous battle with cancer. Stuart Scott said, "Every day I am reminded that our life's journey is really about the people who touch us." Thank you, class of 2015, and thank you, Potomac, for how you have touched me. Go well.